Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name is Mike. Today we've got 5 Deadheads from around the country competing for a prize pack donated by Play Dead. Play Dead is a collaboration between Mason, aka From the Lot, who was our guest curator last week, and Jeremy. They produce officially licensed Grateful Dead merchandise in a variety of just awesome designs. It's shocking and cool that they have been putting together so many prize packs. So our winners get hooked up, and everyone should check out their Instagram. It is at alwaysPlayDead. And from there you can go down a rabbit hole of awesome designs and yeah, check them out. Thank you again to Play Dead. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year the performance is from. Contestants, who are all in video chat to prevent any possibility of cheating, can submit their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last 2 Deadheads standing will have a best of 3 series to determine a winner. We've got our returning champ, Larry the Grateful Dentist, here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment, but first, let's hear the first song. Without further ado, The Grateful Dead. All right, the guesses are in. Franklin's Tower at Oakland Auditorium Arena on August 5th, 1979. Rolling Away the Dew refers to a step of the casting process of large bells. So that settles that. We had one person get it exactly. It is our returning champion, Larry the Grateful Dentist. He nailed it in 1979. How'd you figure that out, Larry?
So what I heard there was I heard Brent very early on. It kind of had that more relaxed late 70s, early 80s feel to it. I thought Jerry's voice was kind of clean, relatively. So that led me to like 79 to 81-ish. And then it seemed to me that Jerry's guitar sounded more like Wolf than the Tiger. I always associate the Tiger with kind of a softer, gentler tone, and the Wolf kind of like bites through a little bit more. And I could be wrong because it was right around that time that he went to the Wolf, but it just kind of it felt I was between 79 and 80, and it just kind of reminded me a little of Cape Cod 79 with that massive dancing in the streets Franklin's Tower, and that's why I picked what I picked.
Thanks, Larry. Welcome back to the show. We had two people guess 1982, Chad and Jesse. They're both on in the next round. Chad, we'll start with you. Chad is 48 and he's from Nashville, Tennessee. Chad, what'd you hear there?
Yeah, so I heard, it sounded like early Brent, early 80s to me. I was thinking 81, 82, 83. I kind of split the difference there and went with 1982. It could have been, anywhere a little before or after.
Got it. You're playing the game. Very smart. And how'd you get into the Dead, Chad?
Well, when I was a sophomore in high school, about 90, 91, I grew up in a small town, Northeast Indiana. And one of my best friends, he had an older brother. He was about 5 years older than us. And where I grew up, we were, 3 hours in any direction to all these venues where the Dead played. You could get to Cleveland or Cincinnati or Detroit, Pine Knob, Deer Creek, Chicago, all within a pretty short drive. Alpine Valley wasn't too far away. And this older brother would go to all the shows at the time. And so I went to their house and I was fascinated. He was so into the Dead and he had tapes. I mean, tapes is what did it for me. This guy had racks of tapes on all the walls in his living room, hundreds and hundreds of tapes meticulously kept in a certain order. And the greatest sound system, he had the Bose speakers and the best stuff of the day. And so I would go over there. He would spin me off tapes, and that's how I got into the Dead. And I went to my first show in '93, and seen hundreds of them since.
So you see his tapes, and you're just like, "Could I borrow one of those?"
Well, he would let me spin them off, so you could come over, and he would copy me like 10 at a time. But I learned real quickly you couldn't bring like the 2 for $1 cheap, TDK. You had to have the Member X, like the solid gray that were $4 a pop, and you had to have the best of the best. And if you graced his presence with that, he would grace you with tapes. And I went back time and time and time again, and eventually he would let me actually take some with me to copy at home. And I always made sure and brought them back. So I started to amass this big collection of show tapes. And it was just one of those things that, how someone's into this on this level. I just got interested in it.
Did you doodle on the tapes?
You know what? It's funny because I would put the set lists on the inside where they weren't on the outside, because we played a game where, it was guess the next song, listen to the jam, what's in between, what's coming up next. You didn't want to know what the set list was. You wanted to kind of put it in fresh and play that game of, hey, what are they going into next? So I didn't really doodle on the tapes, but I would put the set list on the inside where if I really want to look at it, I could, but most of the time I didn't want to see it.
Love that. Cool. Well, welcome, Chad. Jesse also guessed 1982. He's also on the next round. Jesse is 30 from Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Jesse, what'd you hear there?
Just kind of the same thing. I heard Brent jump out pretty early, but I kind of heard Jerry's voice sound a little raspy, so I was kind of thinking like more like that 82, 83. And yeah, I just kind of went with 82. Yeah, thought it was safe and sound.
And how'd you get into the Dead?
So yeah, like obviously like being 92 when I was born, Jerry died in 95. Never got to see him, but in like middle school, I was going to like a local ski area basically every day after school, getting dropped off as like a daycare system basically. And the lady who is now my mother-in-law at the time was the barkeep, and she kept a little radio that played like the local WNCW, and it had dead hour, like 8 to 9 every Wednesday night. And that was like when I would come in from snowboarding, and we would sit in the lodge. And like, I don't know, in middle school, it just kind of started clicking. And then high school, it was another thing. And then into college, it was like, oh, wow, this is something really fun to do. And yeah, just kind of trying to see as many shows as possible now.
So were a lot of kids staying afterwards listening to the Dead, or did she like pluck you out of the group?
I mean, it was just a couple of us that like really just rode, and like We all kind of grew up in the train park hitting rails, and like, I mean, this is like like a small little ski area that's 60 some acres. So I mean, like, and it's like North Carolina where we ski 100 days a year, but it's all like ice basically, but it's like fun as all get out. So it was the kids that stuck around, and yeah, a lot of us still see shows to this day. A lot of us are on the build train, seeing a lot of Billy Strings, and yeah, anytime J Rad's around, we'll drive and see them quite a bit. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like a crazy like 20-year history of like six or seven friends. Yeah.
And everyone transitioned to Billy too.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone, I don't know, growing up in like these parts, like you just kind of get bluegrass like thrown at you very young, like whatever denomination you are, or whatever, like you just kind of hear bluegrass early and often, and that's like the king of bluegrass right now.
Why do you think Billy Strings has this crossover mainstream appeal when there's tons of really, really talented bluegrass players out there?
I say like he's taken Doc Watson in that melodic tone. I think it's like you go to a lot of shows, you see people dancing, and like it's very melodic tones. It's like you look at pop music and like reasons why like Post Malone is popular. It's like it's music that will just literally make you bob your head, and like Billy just does that really well. But then like he like has the chops to like absolutely just like blow you away. So it's like he lulls you in and then just like absolutely like, yeah, I kind of relate it to like that like 68, 67, like Grateful Dead. Like it's kind of poppy, you kind of get going, but then like we'll absolutely just like blow your doors off.
Great answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
On to the next round.
Cool.
So David is also on to the next round. He guessed 1990. Evan was 1 year off and guessing 1991. We'll meet Evan in a second, but first, David is 15. He's from Statesboro, Georgia. What'd you hear there?
Oh, what I heard was I got hooked in by the voice and the pace, like that raspiness, I think that Jesse mentioned. And I bought in that combined with the pace. I was like, dude, 90, 91 maybe. And I thought it was 90 because I heard Brent, but, I just fucked it up, man.
I mean, it's the same cast of characters. So you were right there, And how'd you get into the Dead?
So I was at Michigan, early 90s, and there's a bunch of hippies in Ann Arbor, Dead playing all over the place, people playing tapes, trading tapes, kind of always in the background. And I went on a real emotional day and saw them for the first time in 93, and just got on the bus that day for real. And have been hooked every day since. Saw them on the West Coast, saw them in the Midwest. They've done all the post-Jerry variations. Mostly Phil. Phil's my favorite by far, but I see them all whenever I can.
So Phil and Friends is number one.
Yeah, I mean, I got a buddy who lives like 5 minutes from the Cap, so go up there every October. Every time he's at the Cap, I mean that place is like a home venue, man. Go see Phil there if you haven't, because it is the best.
Our pal Smigo said that Phil's singing peaked in 2010. When do you think Phil's singing peaked?
I listened to that episode and I kind of agreed with him. I mean, he mentioned the show with Trey as well, but I mean that whole all during like the Further and the Dead years, I thought he was very solid vocally. And with the Q and in the mid range of the Phil years, I mean, fantastic vocals. They're still pretty good. I mean, not as good, but I would say, I'd say he's about right. 2010, maybe 2008, somewhere around there. He was at his peak. I mean, some people say the old stuff, but I like the old stuff as well. I mean, the joy he brings to the singing, especially with Phil and Friends, I think it's just out of this world.
Great answer. Thanks, David. Thanks for being here. Evan, you guessed 1992 or 91. You were only off by one in terms of making the next round. Heartbreak. What'd you kind of tripped you up there?
I don't know, man. I totally whiffed on it. To be honest, I don't know if I can hear it all that well, but still, I mean, there's no excuse. Really, I guess I heard Jerry's voice was the first thing. And to be really honest, I thought I heard Vince's little clanking keys there a little bit, So I don't know. I just said 91. And honestly, Dave, I bet you're pretty worried you're going to get eliminated, huh? Well, I saved you, buddy.
I should say, I'm sorry.
I thought Evan... I was out.
Me too. I knew I was out, but
yeah. Well, Evan, you are I'm sorry. Yeah, you're 32 and you're from Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yep, that's right. Just south of Nashville, where the
I live
other
in
fellow
Laverne.
is.
I live in
Yeah, there you
Laverne.
go.
There you go.
We're neighbors, man. We're
Yes,
neighbors.
sir. Yes, sir.
And Evan, how did you get into the Dead?
You know, I went to the big Bonnaroo Festival that's down here whenever I was 16, and saw some jam bands and saw all sorts of really cool, music that I've never heard before up until that point. And about that time, my cousin's boyfriend was really big into like Grateful Dead and String Cheese and everything like that. So I was just listening to that, and I really started getting into the Grateful Dead because the songs, really resonated with me. I really liked everything about them, really. So I don't know, I just kept listening to them. Burned a bunch of CDs, Then I saw Further on New Year's Eve over in Bill Graham over at in San Francisco. I think it was like 2009 or 2010, and that was, when it really when I was really hooked, because I was able to experience the community of it all too, and that's what that's what I like just as much as the music. If I see somebody with a Grateful Dead shirt, I mean, maybe a lot of people wear that now, but even like a Grateful Dead tattoo, I know, we're basically family in a way. We really are, and so it's just the community of it. The music's awesome. I love the improvs of all the all the jams going on, and yeah, man.
People at home can't see, but we can see that you're in the cab of your truck right now.
Yeah.
And you said before we started, you said you listened to the Dead a lot while you're driving around. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, as anybody who's listening to this podcast knows, what better driving music is there? Is and then I can just put on the first song of a show and play it all the way through, and I'm happy. And I just went through 2.5, 3 hours of my day listening to one show. So I mean, it takes up time, and it's a good way for me to really digest things. I mean, obviously it didn't work too well because I guess 91 on the 79 show. I was going to tell people about this, but now I don't think I
will. Well, shoot. And last question, what do you think about the Dead pretending to be truckers, singing about it, but not actually being truckers?
Well, hey, I think I'm still pretending to be a trucker, man, so it's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
Cool, Evan. You're the man. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna keep on trucking, everybody. I'm gonna get back in this captain seat and roll on. But good luck.
Well, yeah, thank you. Evan pulled over just to do the podcast, so thank you, Evan. That's
yeah,
means a lot. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Y'all have a good one. Good luck with everything.
All right, Larry, Chad, Jesse, and David are on to the next round. Let's play the song.
No cobweb on my shoe, standing on the moon, I'm feeling so alone and blue. I see the Gulf of Mexico as tiny as a chip, the coast of California must be somewhere over here, over here.
All right, guesses are in. Standing on the Moon at Pine Knob Music Theater in Clarkston, Michigan on June 20th, 1991. Lyricist Robert Hunter commented on the song, "Standing on the Moon was one of those neat, sweet, quick things. Like It Must Have Been the Roses, where the whole picture just came to me and I grabbed a piece of paper and got it down. No changes, no nothing. Out of the head of Zeus, full born and clad in armor." We had 3 people get 1991 exactly. Larry, Chad, and David. Jesse is unfortunately the odd man out as he hangs. Chad, we'll start with you. What'd you hear there?
Well, I heard Vince and Bruce. And so, although I thought Jerry's vocals sounded a little more labored, like maybe a 93 or 94, the Bruce in there, I mean, 91's your best guess for both of those guys.
Yep.
Larry, you're nodding your head. So you also heard the 2 keyboardists?
Well, I didn't hear much of Vince, but 100% Bruce with that really melodic, lyrical, flourishing, filling between Jerry singing. Obviously that's a late 80s and beyond song. I was kind of between 90 and 91, but I figured 91 was the safer guess because you had a whole year's worth of Bruce shows in that year as opposed to just September to December.
Great. And David, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Bruce. And like I said, I'm from there. I'm from Michigan. So, I mean, that was a very popular tape back in the day in Ann Arbor. So, I mean, it sounded very familiar. I didn't have any doubt.
So you recognize that tape?
Yeah.
Do you ever go to a show at that venue?
Yeah, I saw Dead and Company there a couple of years ago. I saw a bunch of other non-Dead stuff there. But by the time I started seeing the Dead, they were playing the Palace. And then I moved up to the West Coast, so I didn't see them there anymore. But seen a bunch of bands there. It's a great venue. Dead and Company played there the other last year before. I mean, definitely a good place.
Great name, too. Pine Knob.
Oh, it's perfect.
The hill is a bitch on the back of that place.
Yeah.
I once had an adventure back there for a Neil Young concert, the entirety of a Neil Young concert. Me and my buddy had a great little discussion going on whether a cup of Pepsi was leaking or not for the entire show. Pine Knob's great.
Was this an enhanced discussion?
I'm not going to admit to anything. My son's going to listen to this, so I'm not going to say shit.
That's a legitimate reason to take the 5th.
Yeah, he goes to shows with me, but he's still only 17. So
perfect. All right. Well, if he's listening, it was a completely sober discussion about Pepsi for 3 hours. Jesse, you guessed 93, not far off. What'd you hear?
Yeah, it was mostly just Jerry's voice. I thought it was a little labored. And I kind of had studied listening snowboarding this morning actually, and I just had listened to I think a 93, and I had it in my head that his voice sounded like that, so I was like, I'm gonna ride with that, and it is what it is.
So snowboarding runs are pretty short when you're good, which seems like you are. Do you choose a song at the top of the hill, or do you just listen to a show throughout the day?
So this ski area is kind of like my backyard to a degree, and like I said, it's kind of small. So I'll go up there for 2 hours and I can get 20 runs in. So I kind of treat a day of snowboarding to a show, and I can listen to a whole show, stop to bottom, or top to starting to end, and that be my day of snowboarding perfectly. And so a lot of times my day is just spent I'll start it when I get there and snowboard until it's done, and then head on home. What's
the best song to floss down the mountain to at top speed?
Hell in the Bucket's always fun.
Oh.
No, it's fun. I mean, any music. Morning Dew is amazing. Yeah, a lot of times this time of the year, the last 3 weeks, it's been busy, and we make a lot of our money off of the Christmas, New Year's business, most ski areas. But this time of the year, if you get up there when they open, you have an hour and a half before all the tourists come in from Florida, and you can get 2 hours of riding in before the lift lines just kind of get too ridiculous and whatnot. So here lately it's just been a lot of morning dews, kind of right as the sun rises, and it's really nice.
It's beautiful. Jesse, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun.
All right, Larry, the Grateful Dentist, Chad, and David are competing for 2 spots in the Best of 3 series to win the Grateful Dead prize pack from Play Dead. Let's play the song.
Mama told me, my papa told me to. Well, my mama told me, papa told me to. Well, I shouldn't be here trying to sing these railroad blues. I had to listen, whoa, whoa, what mama said. I had to listen, whoa, what mama said. Well, I wouldn't be here trying to sing this cold night bed.
The guesses are in. Big Railroad Blues at Ventura County Fairgrounds on July 30th, 1983. The song was played every year from 69 to 95, except for 75 through 78, 89, and 93. Only one person got it exactly, and that's David. He guessed 1983. David, how'd you figure that one out?
You know, that was a little bit of a guess there. Jerry's voice sounded early 80s. I wasn't sure. There was a pretty big range that I could have gone with. Brent was pretty dominant on the keys. He was really feeling it. And just the vibe. I mean, just felt, pushing towards the mid 80s, but not quite there yet. That's just what I felt.
Cool. You're on the next round. You're on to the finals.
Awesome.
All right. Chad guessed 1984 and Larry guessed 1981. So Larry, the Grateful Dentist, is eliminated. Chad, you go on to the finals. What'd you hear, Chad?
Well, I was thinking it sounded like 84 or 85. I thought I heard, Jerry's coked out voice of kind of that time period. So I was kind of taking a stab at it, just shot with 84.
Great. You're on to the finals. Larry, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to see you go. You guessed 1983. I'm sorry. You guessed 1981.
81.
Yeah. What
So,
did you hear? What tripped you up?
I was not aware that Big Railroad was in the rotation all the way through. It's a pretty rare song that didn't come out often. I know I was at Lehigh on 9/25/81, and they played it there. And it just kind of had that early 80s vibe to me. But as I'm hearing the correct answer, the bottom end in the fill should have kind of led me to a little bit later. But I was thinking 81, 83, but it was just a toss up, and I went a little earlier as opposed to a little later.
Why would Phil clue you into 83?
Phil's. I think Phil's bass rig changed around that time. And I think he was just a lot more solid in the again, depending on the show and the recording, but he was a lot more solid in the bottom end.
Got it. So Larry, your American Beauty band, which you mentioned in the last episode, I went back and listened to some of your guys on archive, and you guys are amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it sounds great. It's top-notch tribute band right there. How did that come to be?
Basically, I've kind of played throughout. Like I started playing in high school back in the late 70s. Had roommates in college that played guitar, so it was acoustic guitars every day. This was the music that I always loved the most and found the easiest to play. And interestingly, for a long time, I was really in it to kind of just jam. And I was with some people for a while, and it was like a weekly jam in a studio in Manhattan. And I was very comfortable and happy with that, just making it for our own enjoyment. But I got to a point where I kind of felt like I was progressing musically and vocally, and the people I was playing with were kind of more consumed with other things. It was more about the hangout to them than about, like, nailing arrangements and getting your vocals together and stuff like that. And I was really kind of reluctant to play out because my attitude was always like, it's a lot of freaking work to do for like $50. But I, wanting to play with people who were stronger players, I just came into a circle of people. Shout out to my bandmate Katie G, who is the female vocalist in the band, and her husband Fred, who does sound for us. She and I are the remaining original members. Band's been together for about 7 years. We've had a couple of people rotate through the Bob/rhythm or second guitar spot. A couple of people, 2 people rotate through our drum position. Couple of people rotate through our keyboard position. But I kind of, in order to play with these people who I wanted to play with, part of the equation was they wanted to play out. And I was real reluctant at first, and I was like, yeah, like once a month, maybe once every other month. And we played out 28 times last year. I'm loving it. I'm having a great time with it. It's a piece of time in my week, rehearsal or slash jam or gig, where I can just kind of lose myself in the moment and not be thinking about all the other stuff of life. And basically, it just kind of grew, and it kind of, the playing out aspect of it, and the sharing the energy, and we don't get big crowds. I mean, we play places that have dead nights, and we played to 75 or 80 people, and we've been in bars where like there were more people in the band than there were in the bar. But just that, like what Jerry would say about passing that energy back and forth and feeding off the crowd, and making people feel, it's making me feel good. It's making people feel good. It's a beautiful thing. And I thank you for your compliment, Mike. That really means a lot coming from you.
I mean it. You guys sound great. And when you make a set list, is it you that makes it as the Jerry of the band, or everyone does?
Actually, Katie does most of the set list work for us. She and I kind of trade things back and forth. As the vocalist, sometimes I think it's harder to perceive songs that may be a little bit more challenging for the musicians. Like He's Gone, we've been trying to really nail down. And it's not a complicated song, but there's like timing issues in that song. Like, where does the do 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 part go and stuff like that? And we had that on the list for last week, and the 2 weeks before in rehearsal, as we were just kind of running through it, it kind of stumbled a little bit in those places. So I'll say to her, Katie, let's put that on the shelf until we get that nailed down a little bit tighter. But there's plenty of flubs, there's plenty of musical farts, plenty of that from the boys too. Just let it go. You just let it go and get the next note, and that's really. But it's generally by consensus. So if somebody says, I hate that song, I don't want to play it, we may work on them a little bit, but like Alabama is a song in our list. Not my most favorite song. I don't think it's my strongest song to play, but people want to play it. People like it. I'll play it. If anybody on the podcast wants to check us out, I'll throw in a real quick plug. You can find us at www.americanbeautyband.net or on Facebook at American Beauty Band NJ. And we play in the greater New York area, looking to build our audience. And we'd love to meet some of you, have some of you come out to some of our shows, which are mostly bar gigs. And Mike, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. This has been a total gas, really interesting idea. And clearly the good old Grateful Dead is the only kind of band that you could do something like this with.
Correct. Larry, it's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, Chad and David are on to the finals to play a best of 3 series for the Play Dead prize pack. Let's play the song.
Just like it usually done. Well, call for the whiskey and he can call for the cheese. Call all they want now, but it can't call me. Oh, no. Don't know where I've been there before. And I'm not coming back around. There's no more.
I'm not sure we've ever had a Pigpen lead, which is shameful, but here we are. All right, the guesses are in. It was Alligator at the Music Box in Omaha, Nebraska on February 4th, 1969. Alligator was Robert Hunter's first songwriting credit with the Dead. David guessed 68. He was closer. Chad guessed 67. David, how'd you suss that out?
I mean, I almost went with 67 too. I mean, it was pretty rough around the edges. You know, Pig always sounds good. He's the man on lead. But, you know, it wasn't real put together. I didn't think it was going to be 69 because I think 69 is a little bit, you know, more polished. They're gaining in power. And so, I mean, I kind of split the difference between 69 and 67, I guess. But I changed it from 67 to 68. So
Great. Well, you go up 1-0 in the series, David. Chad, you guessed 67, not far off.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought as David. It sounded a little rough around the edges. I was between 67, 68. I was thinking maybe late 67. But the sound quality also, it sounded like, sounded like a crappy recording. So I thought it might have been a little bit, older. So
I'm with you on the crappy recording.
Guess. Yeah, that was my guess. Yeah.
So, David, you were saying you're a Pigpen fan?
I mean, I like Pig. Definitely the band wouldn't be here without him, you know? I mean, really, I'm a Phil man. I got a whole sound system set up at the house just so I can hear Phil clearly in the damn mix because he's always too low in the damn mix.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. I'm a Phil man too. That's awesome.
I go see Phil and Friends. He's too low in the damn mix in his own shows. I'm like, turn yourself all the way up. I mean, just do it. But I mean, he's the best musician in the band. I mean, Jerry's got his improv and he's got his, you know, the psyche and the vision. But as far as a pure musician, I think Phil's just rock solid, man.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even play bass until Jerry asked him to. He's like, hey, you want to pick up this bass, you know?
Right. Like... Yeah, and he just nailed it for like, 50 years after that.
Tell us a little about your sound system.
I mean, it's not like incredible or anything like that. Just, 4 speakers set up in my bedroom. I just listen to it all the time. I got a bunch of like Google speakers all around the house tied to the surround system. So if I want to play the whole house in sync, I'll just put on archive and play a show and be echoing out through the house. But, just good, woofer and subwoofer, and you can hear it. You got to hear Phil, man. You got to hear Phil.
I have a Denon 12-band equalizer. So I can kind of play sound guy.
Yeah.
And move the levels. If something's kind of muffled, you can crisp it up. If Phil's too low in the mix, you can turn the bass up and you can adjust it. These digital recordings nowadays are just set in stone. You can put on pop or rock or jazz setting or country, but to be able to slide the EQ up and down, I think is essential for listening to 40-year-old live music. Well, you can adjust the levels of the mid-range, the high end, the low end, and you can actually take any recording, any live recording, and you can basically tune it in. I mean, it might take you 3 songs to get it tuned in, right? Like a sound check.
Just exactly perfect.
Yeah, just exactly perfect. There you go.
That's badass, man. That's cool. So you can take these recordings, as I come across recordings on re-listen, I'm like, nope, there's some problem with it, but you can fix the recording yourself, basically.
That's right.
Shit, man. You're on to something. That's a good tip to relay on the podcast. Thank you, Chad. All right. David is up 1-0 in the series. He only needs 1 more to get the Play Dead prize pack. Chad's looking to even things up. Let's play the song. The guesses are in. One More Saturday Night, Fox Theater, St. Louis, October 18th, 1972. Deadhead and former Senator Al Franken named his 1986 comedy One More Saturday Night after the song. David and Chad both guessed 72. Not fooling anyone here. David, we'll start with you. What'd you hear there?
Bobby's voice and Jerry's tone. I mean, just screams 72. So that's just a feel to it. Phil's in the mix, but he's not super high in the mix. So I almost went 73 because you could hear Phil pretty well. But, I mean, the tone of Jerry's guitar and Bobby's voice, like I said.
Chad, how about you?
Well, especially at the very beginning, I heard that wah-wah pedal that Jerry's pumping in 72. And, I mean, there's no mistake in that.
So he didn't use the wah-wah pedal after 72 much?
Well, he used an envelope filter a lot, of course, in the late 70s and all the way through the end. But, that Europe 72 where he's pumping that manual wah pedal, and that's what I heard. So that's what I went with. I thought 72 might be too obvious, but, I was pretty sure.
It seems like you know a lot about pedals and shit. Do you play guitar?
Yeah, I just as a hobby. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, we're on the next round. David is still up 1-0 in the series. Chad still needs to win one to even things up. Let's play the song.
Crawling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here, the time is right for dancing in the street. The dancing in Chicago, down in New Orleans, New York City. All we need
All right. Dancing in the Streets, Frost Amphitheater in Palo Alto on April 27th, 1985. The song is a Martha Reeves and the Vandellas cover, which is co-written by Marvin Gaye. And while I was looking that up, I listened to the song, and it is fucking great. I'd recommend everyone listen to the original of that. It is so good. It's really, really good. David and Chad both guessed 1981. So we're going on to the next round. Chad, why 81?
Well, I thought it sounded like early Brent. So I was kind of torn between 80, 81, 82. I thought the keyboard texture sounded earlier than 85. And again, I was kind of splitting the difference there with 81.
Cool. Why couldn't it have been like 87 or something?
Just the texture of the keyboard. He's got, Brent's got that poppy early sound, and his voice sounded conjointed. It sounded like it was, a half a millimeter off of everybody else. And I don't know, it just sounded like an earlier version to me. They were more tight in 87. They were much tighter in 87 than what that recording was.
That's a great poll. Early Brent still not being totally in sync with the band. Nice work. David, you also guessed 81. What'd you hear?
I mean, a little bit of a stab in the dark. Definitely could, hear Brent really well, but I didn't realize that, I forget how late they played it. I didn't think they played it much past 82, 83. So I was kind of saying it early into the 80s. I kind of forgot when it went in out of rotation. But yeah, it sounded a little rough. They didn't sound real tight as a band altogether. That seemed about right.
Great. Well, same situation. David needs one more to win. Chad needs one more to tie it up. Let's play the song.
Well, this must be heaven. Tonight I crossed the line. You must be the angel I thought I might never find. Was it you I heard singing? Oh, while I was chasing dreams, driven by the wind, like the dust that blows around, and the rain falling down. But I never know now. No, I never know. No, no. Yes, this is heaven. 'Cause here's where the rainbow ends. And at last it's the real thing. We're close enough to pretend. But when that wind blows, when the night's about to fall, I can hear the sirens call. It's a certain sort of sound. And the rain falling down now, rain falling down, rain falling down.
All right, the guesses are in. It was Saint of Circumstance at Recreation Hall, which is at Penn State University. It was May 6th, 1980. The live album, Saint of Circumstance, was recorded on June 17th, 1991 at Giant Stadium. The song starts off the second set, but beyond that, it's unclear to me and to the internet why it was called Saint of Circumstance. Chad got it exactly, 1980. David got 1988. Chad, you sussed that out. Nice work. What'd you hear?
Well, again, I was going off the tone of Brent's keys. It reminded me a lot of the Dead Set version that came out from the same year. Just the tone of the keys and the early sound of 1980.
David.
I don't have a good explanation for why I was that far off. I mean, I just didn't. I don't know. I was, the song doesn't vary all that much over the years, and I just kind of got lost in it, I guess.
Are you a Lost Sailor Same Circumstance guy? Do you go for that?
I mean, I like it more Lost Sailor. I've done some sailing, so that one hits home. But yeah, the Saint's not a bad bathroom break, really.
Oh, come on now.
I mean,
Come
you
on
can get it.
now.
You can get in and out real quick. You don't miss all that much. You'd have heard it before. It's all right.
Chad, you disagree?
Drifting and dreaming. One of the first Dead shows I ever went to in the 90s at Deer Creek, they did a standalone Saint of Circumstance, I think in 94, and loved it.
So you're a Saint over Sailor guy then, or
You know
you're not choosing?
what? You know what? All the times I've seen Rat Dog and Bob Weir, many times, and you shoot for what do you want to hear? What do you want to hear? And it's funny how it changes through the years. So like, in the early 90s, I mean, mid to late 90s, you might hear, Blackbird or some of this stuff over and over and over again, like the evening mood stuff, Bury Me Standing, and you think, oh man, I don't want to hear that again. And then now, 20 years later, you love that kind of stuff. Give me the Even So, October's Queen. I love it. But Saint of Circumstance, hey, Sailor Saint, I've been a fan from the get-go all the way through. Love it.
Well, Chad, you've evened up the series 1-1. Let's play the song.
Don't ease, don't ease. Don't ease me. Been all night, but I'm coming home. Don't ease me. I'm standing on the porch, walking to Miss Brown. Turn those brown sleeves on, the sweat across town. Was walking down the street, drawing my hand. One up to go home, sweet mama ain't got no man. Don't ease, don't ease, don't ease me. I've been all night, long coming home. Don't ease me.
Don't Ease Me In at Rich Stadium in Orchard Park, New York on July 16th, 1990. This was the B-side of the Grateful Dead's first single, released in 1966. The A-side was Stealin'. We have a winner. Chad, 89, 1 year off. David, you guessed 87. Bravo to both you. Chad, how'd you figure that one out?
Well, I knew it was very late, Brent. Of course, there wasn't a lot, half a year in 90 with him. So I went with 89. But, great comeback, David, man. Hey, I grew up 60 miles from Notre Dame. I know you're a Michigan guy. Sorry to take you down, brother.
That's okay, man. It's okay. It's great play. It's an awesome game, man. Great idea.
Oh, thanks, David. Yeah, David, 87.
I mean, I'm a late, Brett, but I didn't think it was quite that late, Sounded good, but yeah, just don't know.
It's hard, isn't it, man? It's harder than you think.
I play this game all the time in the car with myself. It's much easier with yourself in the car,
The bright lights, man. Well, I mean, you did pretty well. You made it to the 9th song, David. So don't be too hard on yourself there. And we'll be back on the runner-up tournament. And Chad, congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. So much fun. So much fun.
Well, we enjoyed having you. Subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For show updates, follow us at Guest of the Year Show on Instagram. And if you want to be a contestant, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at guestoftheyearshow@gmail.com. Thank you to Dylan, who's making the posters. Thank you so much for listening. For the fun facts, I relied heavily on Dead.net, Dead Disc, Grateful Dead of the Day, Wikipedia, and all their commenters, so thank you to all of them. Thank you to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our new winner, Chad. And to our other contestants, thanks for playing, and remember, it's all one song anyways.
And I bid you good night. Good night, good night, and I bid you good night, good night, good night.